some of that. This is pretty good. This one I took over here and we put, we did a retract method. So I laid on a cover of silver, and then I took the dry sponge and cleaned it off. And so we got two samples like that. This is the first base coat. You know that sample that I made with the blues and ooh, you know, kind of metallic-y, just a little bit of metallics in it. Okay, they didn't like that. So I'm going to take this very dark blue piece of wood, which is representative of what we have on the job, and I'm going to turn this into this. This is our first sample with China brush, dry brushing more or less in a straight line. And this one here, this is this one was one that I had put too much silver on first coat, and then I just started playing with it, and you know, it kind of looks like a rusty piece of metal, but it's okay. Not great, but something. And you can see our color match is pretty darn close right there. So that's pretty cool. Look at that. So here's the rusty metal part. Those are supposed to look a lot alike. I guess they do. Could use a little more of the yellow in there. So that very similar if you're capable of seeing through that silvery coating on there. And I think that middle sample will, here's our silvery case. Add a little of that to it. Maybe that'll help it thin down a little. Yeah, it's quite a bit in there. See what that does. Here's what we're trying to do. We have a couple of these samples. We made these the other day. Finally got feedback, and the one they like is this one here. So this is kind of a mock-up of the wall, which these planks are actually like 6 inches wide on the wall, but they have these V grooves in them. So well, what are we going to do? This is a dry brush, and I didn't have my dry brush with me today, so I'm going to substitute a rag with terry cloth, and we're going to mix up some nice dazzling metallic. This is acrylic. Now we're going to thin it out a little bit with Valspar's glazing mix. First I'm cutting in. Notice everything was taped off, because if I push that the paint right up into the corner, it's going to make a hell of a mess. So the other thing is in these grooves, they could be pretty much opaque, because they're going to show two different lights anyways. Whatever this face looks like, not so, it's going to be one sheen. The top of the groove is going to be a dark sheen, and the bottom of the groove will be a light sheen in almost any condition. So we should have 3 different colors without hardly trying. So I used a towel and I smeared that on. This one might be a little heavy. This is better. This one's really good here. See, it's got a lot of streaks in it. So we want some of that dark to show through. This is only a base coat. We don't want to make it too strong yet. Now, where the rag finished up on the ends, I had to come back and kind of soften those ends a little bit, because we don't want any of that spongy kind of look. Like, see, this is a little spongy looking here, right there, and right in here. Most of it I already cleaned up. Okay, so now we wait for this to dry and go on to the next step. So this isn't completely dry yet, but the next layer is not going to affect that layer too much. So oxides, you know, like rusty metal color. If you look in there, you can see some of it underlying. So I need to mix some of that up. So it's going to be mostly this, some of that, and a touch of this. Or some of this, not much of that, and maybe a little more of that. So, okay, so it's probably easier just to go out and get some sable red. And you want to get your brush dry, 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 dry. Then dip it into this pretty much undiluted paint. So it's kind of hard to see the color there, but that's those three colors mixed. And now it's set on here to, you want a couple of heavier spots like this and this, or maybe like that, so that when we glaze over it, it gives you those streaks that are in there. And you want some of the black showing through. This has to dry really well before we go to the next stage, and the next stage is really going to give it that metal sheen. We got the blue coat, that's the first coat. Then for our glazes, we've got a base glaze of silver done with a rag, a color coat that accents the boards with some little rusty color, and then we're going to do a fourth one, which is a secret formula. Basically the same stuff in here using a sponge, and we're just going to buff it over the top until it looks sort of smooth. Now it's ready for sealing, and I'm going to see about spraying it. Alright, so there, it's a perfect match to the original, and as you can see, those grooves really give it the light and dark that we're wanting to see, the brilliance out of metal. So we'll get a clear coat on it tomorrow, and that should allow a little bit of the color to come through. Okay, so if you look right here, I don't know if that's going to help, so much glare now. You see this? I didn't wait long enough for the base coat to dry, so it pulled some of the base coat off, which it may look okay in the final product, but I think that really sucked. It was dumb. I know that happens. So let it dry overnight. Don't try to do the top glaze until everything's absolutely dry, or that happens. If you look at the rest of this, it's not too bad. I could always silver it up even more. So I could probably let this set and then rub a little more in later tomorrow.